Hey, what's up, everybody? It's OC here to talk to you today about two topics that, again, tie into the same thing. What I'm going to talk to you about today is the radiation at the Fukushima plant and how it ties into flat Earth. I know what you're saying. How could Fukushima's power plant nuclear meltdown and catastrophic event upon Earth have anything to do with flat Earth? Well, I'm going to show you. All right, so the first video that I'm going to show you is a video about Fukushima. It's showing you the radiation levels and how it's almost impossible for them to send anything in there. They sent a robot in a few weeks back and it died within an hour. So there's no way humans are able to get into the plant and see anything that's going on or analyze anything or fix anything. There is nothing that they can do to get around the radiation. So this is where I wanted to bring in and show you a few things. So here's the first video. The first video shows the radiation levels and what's going on with Fukushima. So check that out and we'll be right back.
Well, breaking right now, radiation levels inside a Fukushima nuclear power plant damaged by that tsunami nearly 6 years ago is now at their highest point since that disaster. And experts believe melted fuel is leaking inside the plant almost daily, causing radiation levels high enough to kill a human being with just brief exposure. The latest readings now posing a serious challenge as officials prepare to dismantle the facility. Adam Housley, who covered that triple meltdown in Fukushima back in 2011, is following the story, and he joins us live with more. Adam?
Yeah, Jenna, hard to believe it's been nearly 6 years. And when we initially covered that, it was that great video that came in that really showed the destruction that Japan had to endure from the earthquake and the tsunami. But no one knew at the time the growing threat, which today continues to only get worse. That was the tsunami that took out the cooling system at Fukushima that basically caused the meltdown of 3 reactors that continues to this day. In fact, we're told the most recent numbers due to those meltdowns that nearly 300 tons of radioactive water is dumped into the Pacific Ocean each and every day. The radiation levels, in fact, inside are now the highest levels since 2011. Tokyo Electric Power Company, TEPCO, which is in charge of this area, reports that the radiation level has reached 530 sieverts per hour. To give you an example, it used to be 73 per hour. For people that don't know this stuff, let's put it into very simple terms. 4 sieverts can kill a handful of people. Right now, 530 per hour are being detected there. According to scientists, that's unimaginable radiation levels. A robot was sent in. It only lasted an hour before radiation took it out, basically ruined it. It found a 6-foot gaping hole inside that somehow has to be patched. Now, due to this high level of radiation, the company assures the public everything will be fine, but we've heard this information from Japan before. There's been criticism even back 6 years ago when this first happened that Japan wasn't giving all the information out. We do know this. They say it will take at least $300 billion and 4 decades to finally fix this area. It's the worst since the 1986 Chernobyl disaster. Again, also, as we're getting more numbers coming in, Jenna, to keep this in mind as well, they say that right now there's still radiation being detected off the coast of California and Oregon. Now, it's very small, but the worry is with 300 tons of radioactive water going in every day to the Pacific, what is that doing to the Pacific Ocean, Jenna?
Wow, it's a crazy story, Adam. And I remember all your reporting. You did such a great job there. You posted all the photos that you took and the time that you spent in Japan.
Right.
From your experience there on the ground and the precautions that you had to take simply as a journalist, I mean, what do you think about this?
Well, we only got within 90 miles because we had protective gear, but, we didn't know what we were dealing with. And that was one of the biggest complaints. Even the U.S. military was complaining to the Japanese government at the time. They weren't getting the true numbers. And what some people are saying is, has it been this bad from the beginning? And how are you going to fix this 6-foot hole? I mean, a robot only lasted an hour or so because the radiation level is so high. And we really don't all know also what this radioactive water is doing to the Pacific, Jen. And I think a lot of people are very concerned about that. They continue to monitor fish off of Japan. There's still areas not allowed to fish in, but that water, as we know, moves towards the west coast of the U.S.
I haven't thought about it for several years, and now certainly we are. We're going to have to follow up on this. Adam, thank you.
Now here is a video about radiation in space. Here is a video about the radiation belts, the Van Allen radiation belts that are around Earth. Check it out.
When we look into the night sky, we see the moon, stars, and satellites, and even other worlds. What we don't see are two regions located just above our planet where powerful energized particles from space and our sun are trapped and formed into rings by Earth's magnetic field. NASA's Radiation Belt Storm Probes mission, set to launch in 2012, will give scientists powerful new tools and data to study this critical region of space.
The radiation belts are two donut-shaped regions that encircle the Earth. They're home to very intense radiation, both electrons and protons, and when these particles get very energized, they can cause problems for satellites and astronauts.
The Radiation Belt Storm Probes will help researchers unlock the mysteries of the radiation belts, which were discovered more than half a century ago. The year was 1958, the dawn of the space age. James Van Allen, one of the United States' top physicists, and his team from the University of Iowa, sent two special instruments into orbit aboard Explorer-1, America's first satellite. Van Allen's findings revealed the existence of the inner radiation belt, proving that Earth's magnetic field was strong enough to trap energized particles like electrons and protons. The particles in the belts are considered radiation because of their very high levels of energy. The levels are so high that these particles can damage any matter they come into contact with.
The inner radiation belt is where the protons are very dominating. And a proton, as you know, has a mass much, much heavier than an electron. It can do a lot more damage. So you really do have to worry about your spacecraft safety in that region.
What fascinates scientists about the belts is that they're dynamic structures. They change size and shape depending on the sun's activity. When our sun sends out an eruption of plasma and energy during a solar storm that hits the Earth, it causes a geomagnetic storm. Those storms can have dramatic effects on the Van Allen belts.
It changes both their size, it usually makes them very big, it pumps them up, and it makes them very, very energetic.
What we want to understand is if there's a disturbance on the sun, how do we expect the Van Allen radiation belt particles to change? And because they will change, and therefore they will affect satellites and technologies that they're flying in space and even on the surface of the Earth.
The Radiation Belt Storm Probes will, for the first time, allow scientists to use two spacecraft to learn how the belts change over space and time. RBSP will let scientists answer questions surrounding the belts that have existed since their discovery more than half a century ago.
This mission really will give us those answers, and that's just exciting. I guess that's the exciting part about science in general.
Okay, so now here's the big picture, all right? I want to know why. Now, I asked a couple of people this already in NASA, and a couple of them, I asked 4 people. A couple of them, 3, told me that it's different radiation. One admitted to me that it's not different radiation, that it's the same radiation that's in the Van Allen radiation belts, that's the same radiation that is in the Fukushima plant emitting from the plant. Now, one thing I want to know is, since they can't send a machine in without it dying, since they can't send people in there without them dying, why can't they take the same technology that they used in making a space shuttle and making the space suits and send people into Fukushima with that? Okay, well, you've had almost 5 years to figure out something for the Fukushima disaster. Why not take one of the suits that you used to get through the Van Allen radiation belts and not die, and use that same suit to go into the plant? Oh, well, they were protected by the spacecraft. Okay, so make a small craft that moves on tracks, made out of the same material that protected them from the radiation in the Van Allen belts. Newsflash, people. The Fukushima plant disaster should help you all realize that the Van Allen radiation belts and all of the stuff with space and all that is fake. If it was real, if they really went through the Van Allen radiation belts and they really went up there into that with the spacecraft in a suit, they would have been used that to get into the Fukushima plant. It's been 5 years, and they still haven't found a way to get into the plant yet. What does that tell you? It tells you that the Van Allen radiation belts are fake, that space is fake, that their suits are fake, and that their spacecrafts are fake. fake. If they were real, they would have, in 5 years, came up with something by now that could get into the Fukushima plants. Now, one thing I wanted you guys to notice with this is you've got to start paying attention to the little bits of newscasts that air about the Fukushima plant, because now we're starting to feel the radiation levels out on the East Coast. And the West Coast especially. But now they're starting to feel it on the East Coast. Been feeling sluggish? Been feeling tired? Don't know why, don't know where it's coming from? Seeing all the animals wash up on the beaches of California? Where do you think that's coming from? You think they're just beaching themselves? No, they're dying from radiation poisoning. Tons of radioactive water are being dumped into the ocean every day and have been for the past 5 years. Did you know that? Because they don't want to cover it. There's nothing they can do about it. It's earth-wide. It's across the entire Earth. So that's how Fukushima ties into flat Earth. If the Earth was round and they had really went through space Van Allen radiation belts with those suits and that technology for the spacecraft, then they could have used the same kind of technology to build some type of unit to carry people into the Fukushima plant to assess things and address things. But it's all fake, folks. All right, one last thing before you go. This is an astronaut talking about the Van Allen radiation belts and how he went through them or didn't, or maybe he did, or he doesn't know. But he does know that he didn't experience any ill effects from going through them when he went to the moon, which is on the other side of these supposed Van Allen radiation belts. So check it out. Here is his own admission.
Other than the alleged Apollo trips, all other manned spacecraft have stayed below the belts. These belts do not officially begin until an altitude of 1,000 miles is reached. But when one space shuttle crew was brave enough to go nearly 400 miles above the Earth, they started to experience some unusual effects. They reported seeing shooting stars, which were a result of the radiation hitting the retinas of their eyes.
And if I'd have landed 20 feet behind where I landed, we'd have landed right smack in that crater.
When interviewed, Alan Bean of Apollo 12 initially stated that he had not gone through the belts and did not observe any effects caused by them.
Any ill effects from the Van Allen radiation belts?
No. Now, I'm not sure we went far enough out to encounter the Van Allen radiation belt. Maybe we did.
When it was pointed out that the flight pattern took him through the belts, he changed his story.
The belts are 1,000 miles to 25,000 miles above the Earth.
Then we went right out through them.
No effects on your cells?
We didn't even know it. I don't think anybody, well, maybe somebody said you went through the radiation belt, but we didn't feel it inside, and we didn't get any, added radiation.
The space shuttle went to 365 miles a few years ago. Because I worked in news. I saw CNN. They said that the radiation belts surrounding Earth are more dangerous than previously believed because the astronauts saw shooting stars with their eyes closed just when they got within 600.
Radiation belt. We saw shooting stars, but they're not shooting stars from with your eyes closed, although they look like it. If you're out in space beyond the Van Allen belt, and probably within the Van Allen belt, and close your eyes and just pay attention. You don't notice it unless you pay attention. Then all of a sudden you'll see a little flash like a shooting star, except it's like that. There goes one this way. Then one just blossoms. And then not that fast. Maybe you wait 3 minutes or 2 minutes and one goes whoosh. And what's happening is cosmic rays are hitting the back of your eye and exciting those sensors in the back of your eye. So that's what you see. And they got high enough apparently to close them. My guess is in Earth orbit, if you closed your eyes and just paid attention, that you would see them.
The first time they were seen was when they went to 365 miles.
Yes.
That's 650 miles below or away from the radiation.
Yeah, see, it's below. My guess if they just did it tonight. But see, if you're just going to sleep or closing your eyes or it's dark, you don't notice them. But if you'll close your eyes and pay attention, which we had an experiment to do, by the way, then you see them whistling by. Not on our mission, by the way, they hadn't been discovered yet. I saw them one day on the moon. It wasn't dark, and it was kind of dark, and I saw this flash of light, and it looked like it was on the moon, but really it wasn't. It was a flash of light in my eye.
Some scientists argue that the trip through the belts was so brief, that is only a few hours, that the radiation would not have had a negative effect on the astronauts. But the question remains, if these belts are not dangerous, why in the last 30 years has absolutely no country put even a monkey past these belts? The standard excuse is that no one has wanted to spend the money to do so. But to write off every advanced country in the world as too stingy and incompetent in over a third of a century to explore further than 400 miles from Earth really is a bit too much to fathom. It is more likely that we simply do not have the technology to go further at this time.
Alright, thanks so much for viewing, everyone. Please click like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. We can make a difference, but we must speak up. Flat Earth. Peace.